Greetings and welcome to In-Depth. I'm Dike Rostant. How do we take the same message and apply it differently so that it is heard and understood by a new audience? Today Congotays aims to do just that, and CEO and trustee of the Cropper Foundation, Omar H. Mohammed, and one of the 9 directors, Shania Mark, she joins us to discuss this micro theater festival. For making the time, Mr. Mohammed. I remember Ms. Blackman of the Love Circle singing one day Congotays. That just means that one day you have to pay. But I'm wondering, does the title mean the same in this instance?
Yes, actually, and I'm glad that you recognize it because I didn't when we initially brought up the name. So the idea is, like you said, it's one day you'll have to pay. But in this instance, as we've been feeling for the last couple of weeks, you're paying for it now. So we've shifted the name to Today Congotays to really drive home the fact that a lot of us actually are paying the price of climate change right now. So it's a little modernization, bringing that who the hair will feel into real clear and present issues.
And that reminds me, I have some Maga goat at home, and I hope they listen to this conversation a little later. But Ms. Mark, let's bring you in and ask, what is microtheater, and what are some of the main distinctions between that and what we may be a little more accustomed to?
Oh, so microtheater is this awesome thing that was brought in from one of our Venezuelan colleagues. I don't know if you all will get to talk to him, but it's a style of theater that is done in Venezuela, and he brought it here and shared it with us, and we're really excited to be doing something like that. This is my first time working on it. But microtheater is, as the name says, tiny micro bits of theaters and productions and experiences that we, the directors, are going to bring to everyone in a short space of time. And micro means tiny, but it also means a short space of time. If you blink, you're going to miss it. So the difference between regular theater is you have a show, it's going to run for a few weeks. You come, you see the same thing over and over. With micro theater, we have about 20 different shows, maybe not 20, maybe 10, 11, 12 different shows all happening at the exact same time. And they're tiny shows, no longer than 15 minutes. And the audience kind of controls their own perspective. They control what they get to see, when they get to see it, and they're just going to be so wrapped up in the fast-pacedness of what microtheater is. I hope they enjoy.
It reminds me of something that I witnessed once in Jamaica. They were 10 by 10. So there were 10 pieces mounted, and each of them was about 10 minutes. So it really is a different sort of experience. But let me ask you the question, though, Mr. Mohammed. How does this microtheater and climate justice combine, and what do you hope to achieve with it?
Well, I'm sure we'll get a lot of that particular question over the next couple of weeks. But this whole idea of climate justice really is the human aspects of climate change. We understand the science. Temperatures are rising in some places, going down in some other places, seas are rising, and so on. But it's very hard to kind of reconcile 1 degree rise in temperature in a very abstract way. But on the ground, we see these impacts happening and impacting people all around the place, from farmers losing crops to people getting flooded out. When you have, weeks of rain falling in 2 days, you have people getting more and more impacted by health issues. If a mother is sick, a single mother is sick, you know, who's gonna go to work and are her kids gonna go to school? So you have all of these issues wrapped up in who's paying the price for things that in many parts of the world, like Trinidad and Tobago, we did not cause. So it's hard to kind of tell those stories and get people to understand the justice part of it. So, what's happening is not fair to many people. And storytelling and theater really is one of the best ways to get that message across. Because you're not just hearing a story, you're sort of experiencing it right in front of your face in a language, a dialect, an accent that you're very familiar with. So it's the first time that we're doing something like this, definitely at the foundation, and I think actually within the country itself. So we're hoping that people can go and spend this time, like Shania said, exploring these productions in these two communities and their unique stories in each community, by the way, to really understand when they leave that room to kind of be like, I never even thought about that. I would have never even considered that being an impact because maybe you're not from that particular environment or you're not from that particular upbringing. We really hope the whole act of storytelling and theater helps us to drive home the human aspects of what we're going through in terms of climate change.
Thank you for that. And Ms. Mark, sometimes people may think that because it's theatre, it might be something that could be a little Vikey-Vi. I believe nothing is further from the truth. You open yourself to a level of intuition, but that is prefaced and built on a foundation of discipline. And in terms of prepping for these events, you've gone into communities, you've gone into schools. What has that experience been like thus far for you?
Oh, that experience, in a word, I'd have to say was so rich, especially because these are communities that are, they don't have a voice, their stories aren't heard. So it was kind of an honor and a privilege to hear these stories straight from the horse's mouth. And it's more so received with grace to be able to portray these stories and to share these stories with the wider community in that effort for justice for the people of these communities. We had the opportunity to go around, speak to some of the locals in Labre and Brazil, and not the one across the sea, because as a person from town, when you said Brazil, I was like, I don't know Spanish, but not that one. And it was really a different experience because in regular theater we go out and we gather information and we do research on characters and people and their lifestyle, and it's the same thing, but because we're dealing with such a different matter in that this is actively affecting people, you get a whole different vibe and a whole different set of information when people have to open up about their personal experiences with climate change. And some of them don't even realize that it is climate change. They just understand that this is an issue that we're facing. So it's a privilege to be able to make that connection between the people and their issues and the climate and justice deserved.
And we're going to continue the conversation when we return. Stay with us. Today CONGOTAY Festival. We are discussing it with Shania Mark and Omar Mohammed. We come back with more. Welcome back. We are talking about not one day, it's today. And today CONGOTAY, the festival, we are speaking with a writer and the director, Shania Mark, as well as a CEO and trustee of the Cropper Foundation, Omar H. Mohammed. And so, Mr. Mohammed, Ms. Mark spoke about, well, going into one community thus far. And we just got an idea it'll be happening at 2. So what goes into deciding this is where we're going to stage this sort of initiative?
Well, they actually went to two communities, Brazil and Bethany and Labre, and of course they had some visits to Williamsville as well, which is where they're actually going to host the first set of shows. So we're actually going to be in Williamsville at the Williamsville Secondary School, and then Brazil at the Brazil Secondary School at the last weekend of, of October, and then the first weekend of November. So of course, when you would hear Williamsville and Brazil and be like, that's kind of out of the way. Why are we not having it up in town, for example? And even that question, I think, kind of shows us sometimes that we kind of always put a position of importance in certain geographic spaces. And, you have this whole idea of justice is really showing that everyone's voice deserves to be heard, and especially the voices of those who might actually, in many cases, be suffering, all these different sort of intersectional issues, poverty, lack of infrastructure, and now you have extreme heat and rain and flood on top of all of that. So, we try at the foundation really hard to be a champion for underrepresented groups, and that's across environmental issues, social issues, and so on. And the Williamsville Secondary School and the Brazil Secondary School are also, fantastic institutions with fantastic teachers and administration who really opened up themselves to supporting this work and are very, very excited to host the Micro Theatre Festival. So it's really our way of actively moving the focus out of some of the more traditional spaces and showing that there's a lot of stories to be heard and experienced in Trinidad and Tobago. And these are just two. I mean, we could have literally done this all over the country, but we very specifically are hoping to pull people out of the regular sort of halls of conversation and put them somewhere to hear real stories and experience what, the impacts on life is outside of some of these, more traditional spaces.
And I find one of the interesting things that can come to the fore in an initiative like this is conversations about what is center, what is periphery, and who has a story, who has a voice, as you would have said, Ms. Mark, and how people can articulate that voice. But I heard that it's not one, I heard it's two that you're dealing with, Ms. Writer, Director. Give us a little S now. No need to sell out, but give us a little idea.
It's been wild, let's just say. Being one of the few directors, because I think out of the 9, it's only myself and possibly 2 other directors that are doing 2 stories per community. And I think it's great because I was definitely given the opportunity to expand my horizons. I'm a teacher. I'm a theater arts teacher. So this is kind of a bit outside of my regular, but definitely not out of my comfort zone, as I've been a writer for a while. And I'm really excited. I'm really hopeful because this is the first time I'm writing something on this scale for this scale of people to observe and enjoy. And I'm hopeful that they get the message, they get the idea. And for me, in my style of writing, I tend to include a lot of whimsical aspects, hint, hint, whimsical aspects that I really want the audience to kind of feel as though they are there. They're seeing these conversations happening, they're part of the action. So I think coming from me, the audience can look forward to seeing something a bit out of the ordinary, and hopefully they enjoy it.
Thank you so much for that. And you said, you spoke about your writing style. How many people are involved in each of those stories? Is it one person? Is it 5? Is it big? Is it small? How are we dealing with the micro theater?
So micro, as we say, is little. So we're not doing a full-scale production. We're not going to have a team of 20 people with extras and background characters. No, I have each piece. So I'm doing 2 in both communities, and it's the same actors, because I do have actors in my pieces that are from these communities, and that helps them connect well with the story. And it's kind of reinforcement for me as the writer-director that I am indeed portraying the stories of these people properly and respectfully. you know. So I have one piece, it's two actors, and then the other is three. And that's the way it goes for both. So both of my pieces involve the same five actors, just in different stories. So two and then three. The max I think we someone may have is three. Or four if they're pushing the limits. Yeah.
Thank you so much. And Mr. Mohammed, tell us a little bit about logistics now. And I think that the Fridays they're not advertised because they are set aside for the schools. And I think that is, even when you're speaking about justice, I think that is something that is fabulous as well. Because you spoke about how accommodating both schools and the teachers in the schools were to making this work. But in terms of people trying to get there, what time do they get for? Do they get there for? What are some of the things that they can look out forward? So in terms of like those logistics.
Yeah, exactly. And just one thing about the schools, again, like you said, it really is about showcasing these fantastic institutions. I mean, Brazil Secondary is doing things in environmental science and studies that I think are global level in terms of quality. And Williamsville Secondary has such a fantastic tech work program. I mean, they're putting out students who are literally, topping the Caribbean in things like agri-science and so on. So it's a fantastic group of people. But yes, so the festival is actually happening over Friday and Saturday. So 27 and 28 in Williamsville, 3rd and 4th of November in Brazil. But the Fridays on each weekend, so the 27th and 3rd, are set aside to be focused on students. So students from that school and schools around the area are going to come and be part of the festival. And the Saturdays are open to the public. So the 28th in Williamsville Secondary and the 4th at Brazil Secondary. So to enter the festival itself is going to be on the school compound, and we're going to have many other things going on while people are watching their production. So we have booths set up by NGOs who are doing things like virtual reality experience of corals by species. We have the EMA coming to do stuff on biodiversity and climate. We have interactive art space to come and draw and paint about your climate thoughts. As well, we're going to be having the hydro station. So please walk with your reusable bottles because, of course, the place might still be hot. So you don't have to buy bottled water or anything. You come and get free refills of nice filtered water. So you can come and bring your family to the festival itself. But the shows, and the festival starts from 12:30 and ends at 6:30 on both Saturdays. But the shows themselves start at 2 and run until 6:30. So to enter the shows, we're hoping that folks buy tickets because 100% of the ticket proceeds are going back to both the schools and the actors, many of whom have stepped up to really help us pull off this production. So we're hoping to fundraise as well for those communities themselves. So 100% of all ticket sales are going back into these communities and for the actors themselves. Um, and so we go through the entire day. You have 2 shows per hour with 50-minute breaks in between. So show break, and that's how we kind of go along. And there'll be food for sale, like you could go and get a snack while you're sort of deciding, as Shania says, which show to go to next. And then at the end of each Saturday, we're going to have a little closing session that features Kevin Sawyer, who many of you all will know is one of our sort of foremost stand-up comedians. And he's going to do what I think might actually be the first ever climate change stand-up set to kind of round out the entire weekend. So there's a lot of stuff to focus on and to look forward to. But for tickets, you can go to the Proper Foundations and the Micro Theatre Festival of Trinidad and Tobago's social media pages, or you can go to Suntix, suntixx.com, and we write there on the homepage, or you can just Google Congotaay tickets, and what you know, we write at the top. So there are many different ways to attend. You can also call the Cropper Foundation at 221-5751. That's 221-5751 if you want to buy hard copy tickets and you're not too familiar with the online purchasing. You can also do that as well. But all of that information is available on social media platforms, so please feel free to visit and learn more about it.
And with that, we want to thank you very much, Omar H. Mohammed, CEO and Trustee of the Cropper Foundation, as well as you, Ms. Shania Mark, Writer-Director. And thank you very much for spending the time. And on behalf of the entire TTT News team, this has been In Depth with me, Dike Rostant. Thank you so much for joining us.